You know, the funny thing about animation, it takes 4 years to make the films, so it's sort of like steering the Titanic. It turns very slowly. So Dragon was very inspiring because it was a very dramatic storyline as compared to a more ironic, comedic storyline. And I think it opened the door at DreamWorks for more films like it, but it's going to be years before those films get designed and written and animated. So I do think it changed some things at the studio and afforded filmmakers more opportunities, but it's gonna be just a widening of the kinds of films DreamWorks make. Guillermo's joined and is consulting on a couple of movies. How to Train Your Dragon came out before he got involved, but Guillermo has come to DreamWorks with a animated film he'd like to write and direct, and so he's working on developing that. And then everybody at DreamWorks shows everybody their films, and everybody comes in and critiques and tears it apart and then puts it back together again. And it's fantastic having Guillermo as part of that process. Well, we've always had live-action filmmakers and other animated filmmakers come through DreamWorks, come in and brainstorm or critique the movies. Obviously, we still have a relationship with Steven Spielberg, who comes in all the time and takes a look at the films and gives his thoughts. So it's not, Guillermo's not necessarily unique, but just one in a continuous line of cinematographers and directors, producers, and filmmakers who've been part of the resources at DreamWorks. It was 5 years from optioning the book to getting it on screen, but before we were starting production, we had already committed to making a 3D movie. So from very early on, even storyboarding, we knew it was going to be in 3D. I think so. 3D can either be a gimmick or a gift. So it can either be a trick or it can be a tool to make a better film. And we didn't want to do 3D, you know, where you're just going with the camera, you're just doing this all the time in 3D. We wanted 3D to be part of the storytelling. And so we were very careful with it in the film and used it where we thought it would make you feel like you were flying a dragon or you were in the film, and not just to make you sort of smile at the craziness of the 3D. So right from the start we designed it that way, and in general that's the way we're approaching all 3D in all of our movies. We're committed. It's a full 3D pipeline. Every film DreamWorks will make from here on out will be 3D. It's expensive compared to 2D, but relatively straightforward to make two cameras when you're doing a virtual computer animated movie.
So you released 3 movies this year.
We're about to release Megamind.
Yes,
we released Shrek, Shrek the Fourth, and then earlier in the year was How to Train Your Dragon. I think that we're at a pretty good pace. I think next year there'll be 2, and the following year there'll be 3. So I don't know if it'll be 3 every year, but we're definitely committed to, you know, any movie that's ready to go, we're gonna make it. But we're not gonna make it unless it's ready. So next year there'll be 2, the following year 3, and I think the year after that there might only be 2. Very early. I can tell you that Dean Deblois has signed on, one of the original directors, and he's going to write and direct the second. I can tell you it's a much bigger movie. Everybody's already like terrified of pulling off the movie. So he had a big pitch to people just 2 weeks ago, almost right before I came, and now everybody's trying to figure out how we would pull off that story. And we're so early. I mean, it really is about taking a look at the story and the sets and the new characters he's proposing we meet, and figuring out if we can get it all done. And I think that we're talking about fall of 2013, so we have about 2.5 years, a little less than 3 years.
So fall.
For animation, that's fast, although for a sequel, it's not that bad. We usually take about 4 years or more for an original movie, and a lot of that is just discovery, finding the world, the design, the look of it, how light and color works. Obviously, when you've done a first movie, you've solved a lot of those problems, and you can go a little faster. We just embarked on it. Now, we have a partner in Nickelodeon for doing the Kung Fu Panda TV series. And that's a show that's appropriate to Nickelodeon. It's a little bit younger. It's a fun, sort of outrageous adventures of Po. With How to Train Your Dragon, we're not going to be doing Nickelodeon. We're going to do actually a little darker, a little more dramatic, much like the film. The goal was not to change it or lighten it in order to make a TV series. The goal was to stay true to it and try to make a TV series that was actually fairly challenging and fairly dense. So we'll see, but it's really in the early going. We have a sort of plan for it, but the scripts are just starting. It would, I believe, be ahead of the second film by about a year. So I believe the TV series, the goal is for 2012, and then the following year, 2013, would be the sequel. But I'm not positive. But it would definitely be not at the same time as the series. The goal is to explore this world and sort of introduce something maybe every year to audiences.
Yeah, with different stories and.
Yeah, different stories, different formats. I mean, we did a short called The Bone Napper Dragon that we released with the DVD, and that was a fun, 12-minute piece directed by John Puglisi. That's a really great exploration, one more step into the world of the dragons and the Vikings. It was a big debate, actually. We explored a lot of different versions of the ending. We actually had one ending where Hiccup didn't survive, and we felt that was just not. It was too dark and too hard for a young man to die in the movie. But we felt like what Hiccup had done was so powerful, changing his culture and the battle he was in. It felt appropriate that he would carry the scar of this and make a real sacrifice. And so it came together when somebody suggested, what if he was injured so badly he had to lose part of his leg, lose part of his limb? And everyone, it just felt right. I mean, it was one more reason why he's bonded with Toothless, who's missing part of his body with the tail being wounded. And it felt like in their culture, with Gobber missing an arm and a leg, these battle wounds were something the Vikings were proud of. So even though it was tragic, it felt right for the world and right for the story and right for the Hiccup-Toothless relationship. Yeah, something you earn, and the fact that sacrifice isn't just being uncomfortable. It's a lifelong scar. It's emotional and it's physical. And so making that commitment in How to Train Your Dragon, it was kind of a big step. I mean, you don't do it lightly, especially when you want families and young kids to be able to appreciate the movie. But we worked very hard. Chris and Dean, the directors, worked very hard on the shots of revealing it and how it is treated in a society. Nobody is embarrassed about it. And, frankly, we live in a world where there's a war going on and people are suffering and losing limbs. And though they are heroes as well and have sacrificed something, I felt like the film in a small way honors the fact that when people are willing to put their lives on the lines for others, sometimes they make very, very brave sacrifices.